We're going to talk about weight control, okay? And again, this is something I have struggled with my whole life. I was 65 pounds overweight at one time in my life, and probably always struggle with it. So again, it is a complicated condition, but I want to say this too. I want to say this. A week ago today, I turned 53 years old, and I am proud to say that, okay? I have never felt better in my life. And I should be, like Anne-Marie says, one hot mess. I should be one hot mess. Especially due to where I was 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I was suffering from panic attacks. I could barely get out of bed, and I don't want to belabor this. I think I told the whole Moms Support group, the Moms Connect group, I see some of them out there, about this the other night. But the reason I'm saying that is because I just want to give people hope that a condition never has to, you don't have to settle. You don't have to settle for bad health or whatever you're struggling with. You don't have to settle. That you need to really use dogged determination to find out what's going on with your health. I'll never forget, I think it was a divine appointment, Lori Phillips, who's sitting right here. I was suffering from Lyme disease, a huge hormone imbalance, and also from something called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which basically is an autoimmune condition that is eating away at your thyroid. Okay, I was one hot mess. Okay, I had so many things going on, and I didn't understand. But I went from practitioner to practitioner. Nobody could even diagnose me until Lori called and said, I have a cousin who's struggling with Lyme disease. I want you to go see this doctor in Rockville. And from there, and from other practitioners who were able to help me functionally, only the functional practitioners were able to help me, I got better steadily. It took a long time. It took about 2 years to completely regain my health. But I can tell you it is worth the struggle. So I hope that encourages you tonight. Okay, so we are going to talk about weight control and immunity. Okay, even though we said it's not all about weight, it is an important factor because it does increase our risk factors for certain diseases. What we're going to talk about right now are classifications of bacteria. And I don't know if you remember the classifications, but they're like what is it? Phyla, class, order, genus, family, species. Okay, and this is very simple, but we're going to talk about what classification are in our guts. Okay, and really there are two main ones: the firmicutes and the bacteroidea. And those are the main ones. There are other ones, but those are the main ones that we need to remember. The firmicutes are best at extracting energy from food, meaning they love calories, right? They're well suited at metabolizing sugar, very well at in fact, it's so interesting. What I found in my research is that in sugar factories, you're going to find more of this type of bacteria. It's just teeming with the firmicutes. It's higher proportion in obese people. And it's a higher proportion in the Western gut, just saying. Then under phyla, down a couple rungs, is something called genus. And these, again, there's more of these, but these are the two main ones that are in the bacteroidea. And that the bacteroids, which like sugars and proteins, and the prevotella, which really thrive on plant-based foods, okay? And more healthy weight people have this phyla than the firmicutes, okay? And the elderly, unfortunately, have less. Okay, now this is an interesting study because look at the poor little, I feel sorry for this one right here because he got the bad bacteria, okay? Just feel sorry for him. But anyway, this was a very interesting study because it was done on fraternal and identical twins, right? So what they did, these poor little mice, is they gave the obese twins microbes to one mouse and the lean twins microbes to the other mouse. And we can see what happened here, right? This did not happen by diet. They got the same diet. They got different gut bacteria. Is that interesting to you guys? I don't know. Maybe I'm geeky or something. But I think that is very interesting. That the one that got the obese person's gut microbes ended up gaining weight and absorbing more fat in their body. One researcher says this: the gut microbes are looking after their own interests, getting enough to eat. The microbes appeared to help manage these functions by producing signaling chemicals that regulate our appetite, satiety, and digestion. So when we destroy gut bacteria, there's evidence that it might have an effect on our weight. And in the journal Cell, we can see that exposure to antibiotics early on in life may permanently alter gut microbes in a way that can increase obesity risk later on in life. Antibiotics favor or they destroy the bacteria more efficient at harvesting energy from food. See, this little guy's saying, we're not all bad. We need to stop being such germaphobes, okay? It's just interesting that good bacteria burn more calories. Some good bacteria burn more calories. Hey, that's better than exercise, right? Just get some good bacteria in there. Okay, so in the Journal of Gastroenterology, we see that the contents of a lean human's microbiota were transferred to the guts of male patients with metabolic syndrome. Anybody ever heard of metabolic syndrome? It is, yep, all of you, like I could see some of you people in the health field understand what that is, because it's a cluster of risk factors, which are high blood pressure, high blood glucose levels, high LDL levels, triglycerides, and abdominal fat. It's like this cluster of not so good things that could actually raise your risk of getting heart disease much greater than the average person. And then what the results were, the striking improvements in the recipient's sensitivity to insulin. Somehow, the gut microbes were influencing the patient's metabolism. So maybe some of us that say, my metabolism is just so slow. There are so many factors that are going into that. It could be a hormone problem, but maybe we need to look at our microbiota or our microbiome. Okay, here's another interesting one. In a cell host microbiome, a germ-free zebrafish, this is what these people do for fun. This is what these people do. I have a friend who, she worked for Hopkins as a researcher. She was a doctor in another country, and they had her come over here. She goes, Lindy, all I do is kill mice all day. I'm like, oh, that sounds really fun. But that's what these researchers do. Okay, so they implanted these poor little zebrafish with the American gut bacteria, the firmicutes. Unfortunately, that's what the Western gut has more of, and the results were more fat from the diet was absorbed by the digestive system. And I asked, why did they use zebrafish? Why do y'all think they use zebrafish? They're transparent. I didn't know that until I started studying this stuff. They're transparent. They can actually see what's going on inside this little fish. I thought that was interesting. Maybe y'all didn't. Okay, but I did. Okay, now that we've looked at a few studies about the gut and weight control, let's look how the gut affects our immunity. So what we need to do, beautiful people, is we need to say, where does immunity start? Well, I think more and more what the research is telling us is that immunity starts with the mother's microbiome. The mother's gut flora affects the child even before they're born. I think it's very interesting. And during birth, it's called seeding. Okay, I don't want to gross you guys out, but babies that are born naturally through the birth canal are seeded with tons of great bacteria that help their immunity. Isn't that interesting? Now, babies that are born C-section, guess what they're seeded with? Unfortunately. They're seeded with the hospital microbes and the parent's skin microbes. So they are a little bit at a disadvantage. They can catch up, but they're at a disadvantage when they are C-section. Now, let me say something. One of the microbiologists that is involved with the American Gut Project, I thought this was really interesting, that his wife had an emergency C-section, and guess what they did? They seeded the baby. They took a lot of the birth canal fluids and rubbed it all over the baby. I actually think that is going to be standard for C-sections. I'm just saying, I think, my little pea brain thinks that that's going to be standard for C-sections in the next 5 or 10 years. I just think it is. Okay, so That is because 70 to 80% of the immune system resides in the gut. Beneficial bacteria communicate with immune cells to optimize defenses against both bacterial and viral invaders. I did not say this next thing, okay? I'm just the messenger. This is one of the researchers in the microbiome project. He said, if you get sick a lot, perhaps you need to stop looking at the germs floating around and look at your gut. I hear this and I am guilty, where, you know, especially with the flu going around, people are like, don't breathe on me and I can't be around you. And I understand that. I understand bad bacteria and I understand the fact that you can get things from other people. But a lot of times there are people that they have very strong immune systems, meaning that they have a very strong microbiome and you could literally cough on them. Now, I'm not saying Ebola, okay? I'm not talking about Ebola, but I'm talking about just the flu and the fact that, you know, so many of us come down with the flu, and maybe we need to think a little differently about our immune systems. We need to think, if I keep getting some, it's not, you can't live in a bubble, guys. Maybe we need to think, if we're getting sick a lot, that we need to build our immune system, and I think doing it through the microbiome is the best way. Okay, let's talk about breast milk and immunity. I just have to say this, that when I was doing my undergrad work at University of Maryland, I had a baby shortly after that. And when I was there in the early 90s, we studied breast milk like we knew everything about breast milk. We knew every immune factor. They made us memorize every component of breast milk, because that's just what they did. And so I was big breast milk enthusiast, right? And I had this little baby who wasn't gaining weight. Now, I have to say this, and he was supposed to be here tonight, but his car broke down. But anyway, that little baby, I'll tell you about him in a minute. But, okay, so I have this little baby, but at the same time, at the age of 51 and 52, I had parents dying at the same time. And I don't mean to be dramatic, but they were dying at the same time. I had one in one hospital and one in the other. I had one who was at Georgetown in D.C., and then one at Southern Maryland, and then she got switched to Hopkins. But anyway, so all, you know, with the little newborn, I was traveling from hospital to hospital, okay, and feeding this baby around the clock. New mother, didn't know what I was doing, not, you know, just feeding too often and didn't get high milk, all this stuff, right?